Good morning. Thank you so much for joining us this morning, bright and early on a Monday morning. We are so happy to have you with us this morning as we share with you how you can use Apple's iWork, which is Keynote and Pages, on any device, including the Chromebook you might be watching this video from right now. My name is John Shoemaker from the Department of Educational Technology. And before I introduce my colleagues here, I'm just going to review a couple of our normal tips and tricks that we share at the beginning of every video. As a reminder, this is live and being recorded on YouTube. It'll be on our channel, which is down below. You can click on our name to see all of the videos. I believe we're up to about 50 videos now on just about every educational technology topic software you can think of and some other exciting things. What we ask is that you please subscribe to our channel and click on the bell down below, and just that way you'll be notified every single time we post a video or we go live, especially for some of the exciting things that we're going to be doing later on this month, as we are now finally in May, which is crazy. In addition, we will have pages on each of the trainings on our website, which is edtechtraining.palmbeachschools.org. So we did change our navigation. So on the left-hand side under live stream resources, there will be a page for Apple resources that will be there as well. So go ahead and check out that website. And don't forget, over there on the right, we really would love to hear your input, your feedback, your comments, whatever, as we share ideas with you today on how to use this technology. It is available to you, so we want to share all the great tools that you can use when teaching remotely. So please feel free to enter in the chat box. If you've never used it before, it does ask you to set up a channel. Just click OK, and then you're ready to go. So with that, I'm going to introduce my colleagues. I have with me today John Long from EdTech and Kaylin Markman from Secondary Curriculum. So we're gonna run through all of the different things that iCloud has to offer for you. So to get started, we're going to talk first about going with how to log in. So you log in by just going to iCloud.com, and I'm going to share my screen there. So you just go to iCloud.com, and you need to have an Apple ID. And once you have that Apple ID, if you don't have one yet, you can just go ahead and sign up for one down at the bottom. But once you have an Apple ID, you're just going to click in and sign in with that Apple ID. So I'm going to sign in. And once you sign in, it will take you to the iCloud landing page. One thing that you need to understand is that what we're doing now is we're using personal Apple ID. So even though you saw my district email address, that's still considered what's called a personal Apple ID. The district's working with Apple so that we can create what are called managed IDs, which are hopefully coming soon. And so what those are IDs that the district manages. So you're not allowed to make purchases like on an app store or anything like that. But the beauty of that is it will give you and your students 200 gigabytes of free iCloud storage once that's enabled. And so we will be enabling that shortly. Hopefully it'll be soon. We do know that we're going to turn it on for students very soon. And when we do that, basically every student will be able to log into iCloud and have access to all of the tools, just like the Google Suite. So what we're trying to show now, we started off by sharing, all of the stuff that Google has to offer that we're used to so that you have that basic training. So now what we're looking at doing is sharing what the other companies also have to offer, which you have for free too. So for example, we're going to be sharing some things from Microsoft next week on how to use some of their tools as well. I see my cat is joining the sunshine over here. Sorry about that. So once we get into the landing page, you see you have access to these apps. And so I'm going to share just two of them before I turn it over to John. The first one is iCloud Drive. iCloud Drive is just like you think of Google Drive. So it's essentially just what your drive is. So right now, whenever you create anything in iCloud, so if I create something in Keynote, it puts it in the Keynote folder. If I were to create something in Pages, it will create a Pages folder here for me. I can still upload just like every other product. I can upload my files here. I can create new folders. And so if I wanted to, I'm gonna jump out real quick and say, grab a picture to upload. So now I have a picture uploading, and it is just May the 4th that I used in a Twitter tweet this weekend. I can click it, and notice the little contribute button turns on as well. So I can share this with other people. I can add their email and phone number. I can make it so that only people who I invite can access it. I can make it so anyone with the link can access it. And then I have permissioning as well, the view only or can make changes. So that is across the entire iCloud suite now. One thing to notice though is I cannot click that for the Keynote folder. And the reason why is because when I'm inside of Keynotes, they actually have, and Pages, they actually have their own way of sharing. So it's important to remember that the folders and the files that you upload can be shared, but things like Keynote and Pages, you actually do it right within the software. So with that, I'm actually going to jump now over to John Long, who is going to share with us how to work with Pages now. Go ahead, John.
Good morning. Thanks for allowing me to come in and share. I'm going to share with you Pages, and I love Pages because Google Docs is great, and I use Google Docs a lot, but sometimes I want to make a poster or a handout or something that I really want to stand out to give to people, and it has a lot of graphics and it has a lot of different things. So I want to show you a little bit about Pages. Pages is kind of a combination of a little bit of Word, plus a little bit of Publisher, if you're familiar with those things. So it's a little bit of both word processing and desktop publishing. And I've been using desktop publishing for 30 years practically. So I want to share with you a little bit of things. So let me give you a little tour of what we have here. So basically, this looks just like a regular graphic. I've imported graphics from my computer, like this QR code that goes to our website. I was just fiddling around with creating maybe a little newsletter that we could share out with people, and I just wanted to kind of give a couple illustrations, like did you know how to do a screen capture on your Chromebook? And for those of you that you're already here, so you don't really know that, you already know this, but this is our link to our YouTube channel. And what are extensions? We get lots of questions about extensions. So let me just kind of show you how to get creative with this. You can type in this just like a normal word processor. You can just click and just start typing and stuff like that, all you want to. But I don't want to type up there because my cursor is way up there. I actually want to create a text box. So I'm going to click on this T right here. And that text box, I'm just going to bring it down here. You see how it automatically moves? That's word wrap and stuff like that. I don't want it to wrap because I'm pretty good at knowing where things are. Over here on the left, it has things like style, which lets you change the color backgrounds, like do borders, fills, shadows, reflection. We'll talk about that in a little bit later. And then this is going to allow you to edit your text, and you can have different types of styles, and you can have different types of layouts. You can notice that there's columns over here if you wanted to do columns within your text boxes. And you can also come over here and do arrange. So like the arranging is like, there's your text wrap. You can say move with the text. You can do your alignment. You can change the size, and I'll show you a little bit about the size in just a minute. And you can rotate things. You can group. You can unlock. You can lock things together. So there's a lot of powerful tools here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come up here to text wrap, and I want to just say none. That way, when I move this box, the text doesn't automatically freak out. Just drag it over a little bit. And so I actually have some text for here, which is from our extension show. What I want to do is I'm just going to flip over and grab some of my text here. Kind of like a cooking show, how you've got something over here that you've already done and you want to just copy and paste it. So I can just come over here, and just like on your computer and your Chromebook, you can hit Control-C to copy, Control-V to paste. And so I'm just going to paste that text in here. Notice that it has a plus mark on here. That tells me that there's some text that is not right on the screen. So I can come off of it, click off, and then click back on, and I can readjust this text box if I want to. There we go. And so I can make it a little bit pretty. I can come back over here to text, and I can say I want some bullets here. I can make all kinds of different bullets. So let's just make these kind of bullets and just move it over a little bit. And I can change the font if I want to. I want to bring a graphic in to kind of put right here to kind of highlight that. Or if I want to, I can move over here and put the graphic over here in this space. I've got a nice little G on my screen. So I can actually go over here to choose an image, and I can import images from my computer, or I can bring in other images. I can also do text boxes, like a little graphic boxes, and I'll show you that in just a second here. So I'm actually going to do a shortcut here. I've got this G right here. I just want to drag it in. And it gets really big. So I'm going to tell it not to rotate the text. And I'm just going to drag it down till I resize it. So I'm going to put it actually right there and then move this text over. I want to do some cool effects with this G so it kind of stands out and pops. I'm going to go back over here to the style tip here. And I'm going to say I want a shadow here. You see how it kind of created that shadow? If this was a black background, maybe I wanted to make that orange and stuff like that. I can change the angle of the shadow a little bit. I can talk about the offset, make it offset a little bit, make it stand out a little bit more. I don't want to play with the blur because the blur kind of makes copies look really good if you want to copy. What is this reflection? Well, reflection is kind of cool because like if you've got empty space back there, you can turn on this reflection and make sure that it's there. You've got headers down here. So like if I wanted to put in our website, I could say edtechtraining.palmbeachschools.org. There it is. It's hyperlinked for me, so I don't have to worry about that. If I wanted to make this really pop, I could put a box around it, just kind of make it stand out. So I can come up here and I've got all these different shapes that I can use. One thing I love about these shapes is you can actually double click in it and type inside those text shapes. So I'm going to grab this and I'm going to go over here to arrange and tell it not to move the text. And I'm just going to highlight this. Now you're like probably freaking out on me, like going, oh my gosh, it's covering your text. What are you going to do? What are you going to do? Well, don't worry. I'm not going to freak out. I'm just going to move this down. I'm going to go over here to style. And I'm going to turn on the border first. So there's a border, but I'm going to go over here to this color fill. And I'll actually just uncheck it right there. So there's no fill. And then I can go over here and play with the line type. I can play with the line size. I can even change the color of this. So I have these basic colors. I have more if I need them right here. And I've got a custom palette here. So I can play with this custom palette and I can play with opacity there, right there. So let's just pick a nice color of green that kind of matches the green and the G. And I may want to just actually take the reflection off in the G now that you've seen it. But that's basically what you can do in this. And then when you save it, it automatically saves as you go along. I can add another page to this so it can be front and back. I can add different things to it. I can save this out as a PDF. I could even screenshot it and use it as a graphic. So if I want this in my Google Classroom as a kind of like a piece of material, like a map or something like that, I can include that. But this is a great tool for actually kind of creating things for graphics and stuff like that to share with parents, with other teachers, with your administration. And one other thing I wanted to show you is that I created a project board in Pages here. So like this is my red group, this is my blue group, and my green group. And these are like their reading assignments, and then their STEM project builds. And so they're different types of them. So I just created a simple project right there for us in a project board. But that's kind of basically Pages in a nutshell. What's great is in Pages, you can edit this. I did this all online. I didn't do it on my I did it partly on a Chromebook, so you could see that it was actually not on a Mac, but I did it partly on a Chromebook, partly in a browser, and then you can edit this in Pages app on your computer, or you can actually edit it on Pages on your iPad or your iPhone. And that's kind of a brief overview of Pages, a very quick overview for Pages from iCloud.
Awesome. Thanks, John. One thing I also wanted to share, I'll show on my screen, is when you start a new Pages document, they do have templates. And so I'm going to show you Keynote's navigation quickly here in a second. But in Pages, they have a ton of new templates as well that are brand new. They even have books templates that allow you to actually start to build ebooks or online books, or that you can also download as PDFs. They have a landscape and they have portrait. But just like your normal desktop publisher or your word processing, you can do the basic functions as well. It doesn't have to be all graphical. So you can do resumes, letters, posters like we shared with you earlier, newsletters. You don't have to start with the blank. If you wanted to start with this school newsletter template, you could click it and it will come down for you. They also have cards, envelopes, business cards, certificates. So there's a lot of templates already put here in Pages for you. And there are plenty of other websites too where you can download additional templates. So I just wanted to share that part of Pages as well. So thank you, John. We'll bring you back at the end when there are some questions. So now we're going to move on to Keynote. And so Keynote is one of the suites. We're not touching Numbers. Numbers is here as well, just so you know. Numbers is like a version of Excel. It's Apple's version of Excel. It's also very graphical as well, which is nice, but we just didn't have time to cover all three. So you see when I clicked on Keynote, the first thing it brought me to is my recent. So these are the keynotes that I've been using recently, but I can always come up here to the New button and choose New. And when I choose New, that's when all those templates come up. So the templates, like I shared, Apple literally just updated a week or two ago and added a whole bunch more. They added a whole bunch more templates. So you can see all the ones across the top are the new ones that all the new ones that Apple just released, and you can continue to click across to see those ones. But then they also have them in different styles as well across the bottom. So all of the options for templates are there. So I'm just going to choose, I'll go with this one. And so once you choose one, it will open up. There is a question asking about, can we link this to my Google Drive? There is no link to Google Drive right now. Basically, you would just go to iCloud.com and log in with an Apple ID. Again, that's not your district ID, it's an Apple ID. So if you have an iPhone or an iPad, though, that would be what you use. Otherwise, you can always create one as well. So this is the landing page for this Keynote presentation. And just like you saw on John's screen, it's very similar to Pages. So the layout on both of these apps are very similar in nature. So starting in the top left, this is the only thing that's hidden that most people don't know, which are presenter notes. So I use presenter notes a lot, and that's actually hidden up here in the layout. So don't be afraid to click around to find things. But now you notice my presenter notes, if I can spell, show up down here at the bottom, right? And I can just adjust them as normal. Continuing across the top, you have how big you want it to fit in your window. You have your undo and redo buttons, the play button for when you're actually ready to play your slide deck. And then these are the options to insert, and they are very, very much similar to Pages as well. So I can add a table. I can add an exciting, colorful, interactive, if I want, chart here as well. The T lets me add, I'm just going to select all this and delete. The T lets me add a text box, so that's where that came from. And one of the coolest things that Apple has done recently is they've added a lot of shapes. So this shape directory is in here, and there are some powerful things you can do with the shapes. So the first thing is that you can always search for shapes, and it's not perfect, but if you search for something that you're looking for, then chances are it'll be there. So when I click on it, notice it put it in there. And now, even though the shape was black up here, Keynote knew that because my background was black because of the theme, it says, well, I need to put it in there white. I can change the color over here if I want with the style. That's fine as well. Whatever color I want the chicken to be or the rooster to be, right? There's another advantage to shapes. So I'm going to put this, I don't know, I'm actually going to do, let's say we want to make an ice cream cone, right? So here's my ice cream, right? And now I want to get a cone shape, which would be this, but I need it to go the other way, right? So now I'm going to put the cone there. And I want the cone to be at the very back, right? So I'm going to go up to arrange and put it in the back so that it shows. And now I'm going to put it how I want, right? So now also I'm going to make my ice cream cone. Let's see. I'm a fan of, I have to do this way, huh? Let's see, more. I don't even see a chocolate color. Maybe there, right? There's my chocolate ice cream cone. And so now I can also change the cone to be a different color as well. We can make that more like a cone color, right? Beautiful. Now, unfortunately, though, if I want to move my ice cream cone over here, it's not connected. What I'm able to do is select both of them and group them as well down here, just like a lot of the other apps that are available. So I can group the shapes as well. But one other cool thing I can do is I'm going to take this shape and I'm going to make it really big, is I'm going to make a tent. So I'm going to make this tent like this. And if I grab another triangle, because I want my tent to have the door open, I can do something like this. And what I can do now is I'm going to make this, well, I guess it really doesn't matter, but because what I'm going to do is I'm going to combine the two of these. And when I have them both selected, I have some interesting features that show up down here. So what I can do is make it so that it subtracts. So now you notice that where that triangle was, when I hit subtract, it deleted that out. Okay, so I'm going to undo that. I can also exclude, which is very similar. Wherever the two pieces intersect, you can exclude. You can also unite two pieces, which I could have done over here. But what I wanted to share is that these 4 tools, and notice they only show up whenever I have 2 pieces selected. So I have to select more than one. So I have to select more than one, but these 2 pieces allow you to do some powerful things with these shapes. And again, this shape library is extremely vast. There's hundreds of shapes in all different sets of categories that you can use and that you can intersect. I've seen people use these worlds and using one of the animations, make it so the world looked like it was spinning on the slide. So yeah, it's very nice to do that. I do see there are some comments in the chat as well talking about where this works. So with this is again the online version. If you have an iPad or a Mac, these apps are already stock on your device. So we're just using Pages, but there's an actual Pages app that comes directly on iOS and Mac devices. You would use that app instead. We're using the online version to show that you can use it and edit it in other places as well. A couple of other things, there's a collaboration button. So I can actually have people collaborate on this as well if I wanted someone to join the presentation. John was talking about creating a newsletter. Underneath of the wrench, there's a download a copy. So when you're finished, you could always download it as a PDF, and then you could share that out with whoever you wanted to share out. So the download option is under the wrench in both apps. There's also some of the some preferences. Another nice thing is versions. So while you're working, iCloud is constantly saving versions of your work. And so if you say, oh my gosh, I deleted a slide 3 days ago, I need to go back and look, I can go and browse all of the version history. And notice this right sidebar changes based on what I click on. So right now it's talking about the document, but if I click on my text, oops, sorry, clicking on the wrong screen. If I click on my text, you'll notice that this over here changes. So whenever I'm not clicked on anything, you have the basics, but then when I click on something, the other options appear. So let's say I want my ice cream cone to float in. I can come to the animate and I can build in and I can make it do like something like an anvil. And an anvil's fun because it just comes down and slams down nice and hard whenever I want to click, right? So just like all slide decks, you can add your transitions. And then I can also add my transitions between the slides. So these are all the options when you go from slide to slide that you can add as transition effects as well. So that's just a basic overview of how you can add. And then of course, down in the bottom left, that's where you add new slides too. I forgot about adding new slides. So again, this is all part of the template. So you see how beautiful these slides are now. Apple has really done a great job adding some new slides. They're also trying to push you, which Kaylin is going to share in a second, to not use a lot of text. So as you can see, when you're looking at this slide, notice they're just asking you to give the statistic. So we can say 30% and then whatever the fact is, just a short fact. So you have one fact per page. And then on this one, it's just a quote and an attribution. So they're really showing you how you can easily create slides that are not busy and slides that are easy for people to understand. So that's why we brought Kaylin on, because Kaylin and I, a couple of years ago, did a fun presentation that we called How to Make Presentations Not Suck. So we brought Kaylin in to talk a little bit now about slide design. So she's going to share a little bit about how to make your presentations look good. Go ahead, Kaylin.
Good morning. This is such a big thing for me. Anybody who knows me knows that I labor over every detail of a presentation. And I think it's really important, as the message that you're sending is really, you want it to come across. And unfortunately, while the content could be good, if it doesn't look good, it's sometimes not well received. Now, we all know things that look good where there's no substance either, right? So we don't want that either. So that's really important. But when you start to think about presentations, I want you to consider the fact that a really good idea can be destroyed by a bad presentation. So there are some things that they're like the cardinal rules. And one of the things that, as we brainstormed this years ago when we did this presentation, I kind of came up with this idea of this slow death by slide deck. And we've all been there, right? We've been in a meeting, a PD, and you're thinking, how many more slides to go? And you're looking at the clock. And that's not the kind of presentation that anybody wants to have. So here are some really interesting points that I want to make. Look, if you can send it to me in an email, right? Like, I love when people give you the packet of slides, and I'm like, well, why don't I just take this with me and I'm out, right? I don't need that. And as far as animated text, John just talked about animating your text or your images. It's important to only animate a few things. You want to draw attention to those couple things. If everything is animated and everything has some sort of motion to it, or bolding or italicized text to it, it doesn't draw your eye to anything. When we talk about the number of fonts people use, if you notice what John was mentioning, and I'll take you into the platform in a second, the fonts stay pretty consistent, and they may change a couple of them, but you're not going to find in a slide deck using 5, 6, 7 different fonts in one slide presentation. As far as diagrams are concerned, I see people put diagrams. Not only do they stretch the diagram in some sort of, or distort it, should I say, where it's unrecognizable, but you can't see it. So if you, just like John mentioned with the percentage, if I want to call out a statistic, let me just call out that specific statistic at 30%, 40%, 90% of people say this, as opposed to putting a graph up there that's so difficult to read, that's really meant for someone in a print form. So if you wanted to have all of the data presented, give the people a handout of that graph. But when you're presenting it in a presentation or you're sharing something like that, you want it to be visually appealing. Images. When you're searching for an image, if you notice that when John went to look for his image, or even when John Long was putting in his image of that G, if you recall how big that image was when he first brought it in and he shrunk it down, he found a very high res image of a G, knowing he didn't need it that big. But as he shrunk it down, it stayed really crisp and beautiful. And he could have used it really big. He could have stretched it out to the size of a page. So that's really important, that you look for high-res images that are large. And you also want to consider, don't pick images that have watermarks. There are images, and John, we always talk about this and laugh. I'll see presentations where I'm like, wow, so that was a copyrighted image, and we just snatched that right from the internet, and it says, you know, whatever stock photo across it. And again, also with video, and we didn't really talk much about that, but don't show a 30-minute video in a PD. People want to see clips, small clips, right? Break it up, chunk it. So having said all of that, please avoid the slow death by slide deck. And I'm going to take you into the actual presentation now, into the platform now, and we'll talk about that. John, I don't know if you want to add anything before I go into that, but.
No, I think it's important. I shared in the chat. The secret way to make sure that you're getting a high-res image is when you're in Google image search to change the size to large, so that you know you're getting a large image, so that if you are going to make it bigger on your screen, it will not blur. So yeah, so go ahead, keep going.
So John mentioned that there's templates in here already, and they're beautiful. I want to point out the fact that the people who design these templates, they're graphic designers. So don't do a terrible job in ruining their design, I guess is the way I think about it. I don't know. I'm trying to think of the best way to say it. So if I were to choose a presentation, and I'll just choose this one, Showcase. It looks great, right? I open it up, and immediately I can get to work on this as soon as it loads. But as John mentioned before, I also wanted to point out, so that I don't forget, this platform is so robust that the document, the instructional continuity support plan document itself, that long PDF with all of the images and tables and text that was in it, that was created in Pages. So just to keep that in mind, in an online version, and that collaboration happened across the online portion of iCloud in Pages. So I want you to realize that major documents, big presentations could easily be made in something that you have available to you free on probably any device that you have. So here we can see, I opened up a presentation, right? And I want to go ahead, and over here is my slide layout, and they've selected a font for me, and I can go ahead and see which font that is, and it's in a bold style, and I know it's this big. Down here, I can take a look in my subtitle. And again, I want to point something out to you right here. Do you see how this went to semi-bold? Designers do this intentionally. And I know that sometimes it might be subtle differences that you don't notice. But let's say if I were to just type in, I don't know, I'll just type in the word keynote, okay? This right here is in a bold font. I know that doesn't seem much different from this because they stayed within the same font, but just by changing this simple right here, right, for the style that I want it in, right? Do I want it in regular, italics, light, medium, semi-bold? Just by making it semi-bold, it changes how you view that text on the slide. So if I say, let's say keynote, and I just write tips and tricks, right? I'm gonna go ahead and change this to the bold that the other one's in, and I wanna point something out to you. Do you see how it's a subtle difference? And maybe that doesn't mean a lot to you, but for me personally, when I look at something like this, I notice those things. So the fact that I'm gonna hit undo, because I liked it in the semi-bold, right? But if we go ahead here and I wanted to, let's say, I'm not gonna add an image to a slide like this. And why do I say that? It's basically a tie-dye, multicolored slide as it is. So it would have way too much going on, in my opinion. And there's a reason that when Apple designed it, they didn't include a space to put in an image, right? So I think that that's key. So let's go ahead right now and we'll add ourselves another, wait, I'm sorry, I can't really see very well. I'm gonna add a new slide, right? And I'm gonna change my layout over here. And I want this now to have, let's say, I don't want a background. And you can see over here, I have my gradient fills and all this other stuff. Well, I want to make sure that this is just a white background, right? So I'm going to take the background, oh, sorry. I'm going to take the background and I'm going to make it a color fill and I'm going to make it white. Can I do that? I should be able to do that. John, why is that not working? Color fill.
Yeah, it may not have the option. That's for the slide, though.
No, I know. I should be able to fill in my background.
Do they have a blank one in the bottom left when you add a plus?
Let me see.
When you add a new slide in the bottom left, can you add a new blank slide?
Let me see. Oh, I could. Yeah. Thank you. Normally, I'm so used to in the regular format, like I'm be working in that. So those are like the little things that you learn. But let's say I want this, right? Because I'm going to now present, and I'll delete this one out. And now I want to talk a little bit about, because this is just my title slide, but now I want to go ahead and I want to take an image into here. I want to show you something that's very important. I'm not going to do, if I do this, because this is constrained right now, this is set to, if I drag this, it's going to stay the same size. But if I were to have this image over here and I took off constrained proportions, and this is super important, and I go like this poor girl in this poor hoodie looks so bad right now, right? And just because I wanted it to fill up this whole slide, well, that's not what this image was really designed for. The sizing of it and the proportions. So I'm going to go ahead and hit undo, right? But I'm not going to stretch that image to fill up an entire slide because it's not meant to do that. Now, sometimes what an image will do, and I want to point this out to you. So let me actually get this back to the full size of the screen. If I double click on this image, do you see how there's all this space over here that's still actually part of the image, but it's almost masked? I could change that if I wanted to by dragging this right over here. So sometimes we might find an image that we like, right? Let's say we find a picture on the internet and we like it. let me go ahead and I'll do that, and I'll grab a slide that I can't see, actually. This is my problem right now, my setup. Okay, so let's say this image, and I wanted to only take her. I find this image on the internet. I only want her in the image. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to do that constraining piece and take that portion. I can't find the, oh, there she is. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and take the part that you're going to visibly see of this image. I should be able to do this. Where's that happening? Oh, there it is. And anytime you see those black bars, so let's say I wanted to see this portion. I wanted to type something above her face or something like that. So I want this to be, and I'm going to reduce this a bit so that I can see what I'm doing. And I do that a lot when I'm working, so I can see the space around the slide that I'm not playing with. And let's say I wanted to move this text box, and John did this before with pages, right? So I go ahead and I grab this box, and I'm going to grab this box too, because I want to keep these in the same space that they had them in. And I'm going to take this up here, and I clearly moved that before, so I'll move this back here. And right now I have these two things here. And again, and that border that you're seeing, that's not really there, right? So if I change this to Keynote and I make this tips and tricks, I can do that. If I wanted to go ahead and add a color to this background, this is what I was talking about before. If I wanted to, let's say, add a fill to this background, I could go ahead and color fill this, and I could make this black, right? And that's what I was trying to do before. I didn't know why that wasn't working, because I think sometimes that does work. And I can change this to white text, right? So immediately I changed the whole visual of the slide. If I wanted to add charts or tables, so here I go ahead and I say, you know, I want to add another slide. And on this slide, I'm going to have bulleted text, but I also want to add like a graph to this. I can go ahead and pick any one of these graphs and say, you know what? I want to add this in here. Immediately. How fast is that? For those of you that really struggle with making a graph in Excel, it's really a powerful tool. And how do I edit the chart data? I can go right over here. It pops up a window, and immediately I can change this. And maybe I need 3 bars. Maybe I have a region 3. Look what this is going to do, just so you know. This is how cool this is. Not only did it do that, but it gave me like a color coordinated bar that would go with those, and it didn't come up with something crazy. And if I wanted to change them over here, I can change the colors right over here as well. So I just wanted to point out the fact that you want to be really intentional in your design. And it was Saul Bass who said, and I love this quote, I have it in my office, I want to make beautiful things even if nobody cares. So to me, I think that it makes the presentation or document that someone's reading that much more inviting. And the very important content that you have to present to somebody will actually be seen and heard.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks so much, Kaylin. There's so much you can do with these tools. These are just, you know, scratching the surface of what's available. So yeah, so if you do have questions, though, please feel free to reach out to us. There are some things that you can do in Keynote that are so amazing. Like you could make full-length movies just using Keynote.
And I have done that.
Yeah, and Kaylin has made several with that in the past. And you can find a lot of that on Twitter. There's something called the hashtag Magic Move Challenge, where you can see people using one of the options for animation, which is called Magic Move. And doing that, it makes the slides move from one slide to another, and it looks like animation. So definitely feel free to reach out to us if you have questions on how to use iCloud for sure. Again, this is the online version. If you have a Mac, if you have an iPhone, if you have an iPad, you're going to use the ones that are already installed on those devices. It's already there for you. This is the online version.
And John,
go ahead.
I just wanted to point out one thing that you made me think of.
Yep.
Another thing that you not only just creating a video or a movie from Keynote, but one of the things that I love to do with it is making images.
Mm-hmm.
So if I want to make an image to a specific size, for example, you guys all are using Google Classroom. And one of the things that I suggested for my teachers was to make custom banners. And those custom banners at the top of their pages, I wanted them to have either like a little note to the kids. We included QR codes that kids could scan, like frequently asked questions. So how did we create that image to load up to Google Classroom? We created that image in a slide to the certain parameters and specs of that space, and then exported it out as an image.
That's a great idea. Yeah, for sure. So thank you guys. We appreciate it. A little bit of what's coming up soon. First, obviously, we're through the 8 o'clock hour. This afternoon, the EdTech training team is going to transform into our Star Wars counterpart. So we really hope that you will join us at 2:30 as we continue to celebrate May the 4th be with you. We have some great ideas, some great tips and tricks for you for both sides of the Force. And then on Wednesday, we have an awesome special guest from Book Creator. They're going to come in and show you how you can use Book Creator's powerful tool. That's one of the things that I love about Book Creator is it can work in every subject and every grade level. Whatever you teach, Book Creator can work with. And John and I even went into a pre-K, age 3 and 4s, and helped them even using Book Creator. So Book Creator is a definite tool that is powerful for you, especially in remote learning. And then at 11:30 on Wednesday, Kaylin will be back, this time as a moderator, as she does a lessons learned panel with some of the teachers she works with for her PLCs. So can't wait to see that panel as well. And then, as we've shared, coming this month, we are going to be doing some virtual field trips and some career day discussions. So we are slowly booking some people throughout the month to not just for you as teachers, but to share with your students. We want your students to join these discussions and learn from people from all over the world. So we can't wait to start those with you. As always, if you need assistance, our great team from SMART, our SMART trainers, are there to answer your questions. So please feel free to visit that bit.ly, help form EdTech, all caps at the end there, sentence case, and someone will get back to you quickly. That is much easier than emailing us because there's only one of us when you email us. So please feel free to use that form to get some help. And with that, I will allow John and then Kaylin to share some last words.
Pages and Keynote are wonderful tools, and using the iCloud version is a great way of creating some great resources for your Google Classrooms to share out with your students in your Google Meet sessions or anyway. And they're really simple to use. They're very powerful tools, and I would just encourage you to start off and just try them, and you can use them on any platform.
I would agree, and I'm so committed to Pages and Keynote. Well, I am an Apple person. I am, right? I'm sorry. But I do understand the power of wanting something in Chrome, especially for your kids, because we're using Classroom and things like that. So I just want you to be aware that a lot of times if I want to create in Keynote or Pages, because that's where I feel comfortable, as I mentioned before, I export a lot of things as images. So I might turn around and make an entire Keynote presentation because I like the beauty of it. I like the tools that John Long, mentioned about the borders and the different things that I can do. And John Shoemaker mentioned things like making my own ice cream cone or making a teepee or making any sort of image. I can't do that in those platforms. So I if I feel comfortable creating in this, I might export as images and literally take those images and drop them onto slides in Google Slides, because I like the presentation that I'm able to make in this platform, and I'm not able to do that in other platforms. And that's just me and how I design. So
awesome. Thank you all for joining us, and we will see you this afternoon. Have a great day. Bye-bye.
bye.
Bye-bye.